Okay, it's very interesting. We've had the same question for almost a week. If you don't know this question by now, go to Eli Stefanski's share. He'll explain it to you. Yeah, I figured let me get it over right away, quickly. I know.
Eli Stefanski know where it is on YouTube.
Yeah, right. Okay, anyway. So I don't get any gifts from you. Anyway, I'm for 25 years. I got nothing. Anyway, okay, so Geshmak, guys. We have the shalis, aleha, right? Why do you need aleha? Meaning, why would you think that that it's asa, that you would need what? That it's mutta, that we need a pasuk to say it's asa. So let's go through what we did so far. We tried using the mechanism of essay dochalos essay, and we failed. We thought we found the source by killing a person on Shabbos, or perhaps, and we found, well, guess what? That's a kal v'choima. It's not what? It's not essay dochalos essay, and we need essay dochalos essay. So yesterday we found the source. We found the memetzinu, a very easy thing, a memetzinu. Just like you find that eishes ach, that a regular case of yibum is mutta. So I'd say achas ishta, your wife's sister is also mutta, right? And therefore you need what? You need Allah to tell me no. Very simple. The Gemara asks a simple question. By Eishes Ach, there's only one Issa to go ahead and overcome. By your wife's sister, you have two. You have Eishes Ach, the fact that it's your brother's wife, and two, the fact that it's your wife's sister. So how can 2 versus 1? So we said it's not a problem. Even the Ishtri. In other words, once we got a waiver, we got a waiver. Where did you see once we got a waiver, we got a waiver? From Mitzorah. You had a Mitzorah. He's a waiver. What's his waiver? He's sticking his right hand into Machne Shechina, which is an Issachorus, and he's a Tful Yoim, and a Tful Yoim for Kerry, and that day is not allowed. Even the Ishtri, since we gave him a waiver for his Mitzorah, we get the waiver for what? The fact that he's a Baal Kerry. And that's what we left off with. Good? So Kivin the Ishtri. So therefore, I would think that what Kivin the Ishtri, right? Even though there's an issue of what? Besides Eishes Ach, there's an issue of Achas Isha. Once it's mutta, it's mutta. Therefore, I need an aleha to tell me it's not mutta. That's why we left off that. Okay, now, outside guys, this next is a little knech. If you want to compare it to Mitzorah, it's got to be the exact same scenario. Good? Now, what's the mechanism of keeping the Ishtri? What were you first? Were you a Mitzorah first, or were you a Baal Keri first? Clearly, you were a Mitzorah first, right? It's your Mitzorah. You woke up in the morning, you were great. You were going to bring your kabbanis. Everything was great until the tum of Keri came in. But clearly, so now, what's the svara? Since I'm matter from first base, I can matter second base. Mitzorah's first base, Keri's second base. I'm undermining that mutta. So we would have to have the exact same scenario by Achas Isha and Eishes Ach. So let's create that scenario. You create a scenario. A person gets married, right? A person gets married to a woman, and he's got a brother. So what's the issue over there? What is Eishes Ach? That's Eishes Ach. After that, you marry your brother's wife's sister. Then you have Achas Isha. Good. So in that scenario, then the brother dies. Then your brother dies. Even the Ishtri, the Isser of Eishes Ach, which came first, you can matter the Isser of Achas Isha, which came second, similar to the Keri after the Mitzorah, right? What about the following scenario? You marry your wife, then your brother marries your wife's sister. So you were Usser on your brother's wife of Achas Isha, of your wife's sister, before the Isser of Eishes Ach. That scenario, you're not going to have Kivan the Ishtri. It's going to be reversed. Let's see it inside. Says the Gemara. Mi dami lida'ula is the case. What we're holding on the mamish on Zion Amid Beis, the last 3 words on the page. Says the Gemara now. Mi dami, is it comparable lida'ula? Meaning, is your case by Yibum comparable what to Ula's case of what? Mitzorah and Eishes Ach, Mitzorah and Keri. Teinach hecha, guys, the nasa meis. First, the person who died married, the ach kach nasa chai, and then you got married. In other words, the Isser of Eishes Ach preceded the Isser of what? Achas Isha. Then the Migo, the Ishtri Isser Eishes Ach since you're permitted to marry your brother's widow, al siyibum, ishtri nami is achas isha, it could take off the fact that it happens to be your wife's sister as well. Why? Because the issue of your wife's sister came after the Ishtashach, just like the Keri came after the Mitzayra. That would be the exact scenario. Ella what? Ella nasa chai. Let's say the guy who was alive, the brother was alive. He got married first. So guys, as soon as he get married, his wife's sister is asa to him. His wife's sister is asa. So the issue of achas isha came first. The akach nasa meis, and then the one who dies married the sister. So what came first? Issa achas isha kadim. The issa of achas isha came first. Vafilu nasa meis nami. And okay, so good, guys, you good? So in other words, that scenario, you wouldn't say kivin the ishtri. What about the first scenario? May, we're going on. So again, we're going on. There's no questions time. I'm sorry. The shear is going to go. I can. Okay. I'll take it. I feel bad. Okay. I don't feel bad. It's the first thing I do. Anyway, so you know me 25 years, man. When did I ever feel bad? So,
there was once 24 years ago.
Actually, I think I know him 30 years. Anyway. Huh? Oh, Bukaboom. Oh. Anyway, now, Vafilu Nasa Mace Nami, and even when you married what the mace married first, in other words, you created the Isser of Achas Isha first, Teina Checha de Nasa Mesu Mace. That's good what? If you married and then he died. V'yakach Nasa Chai, and then you married what? In other words, the Isser of Eishes Ach was there alone, and then only afterwards did you create the Isser of Achas Isha. Your brother marries a wife, right? And now he dies. His wife falls to the Yibum. That's now. Before you mayabim her, you go ahead and you marry her sister. Mm-hmm. Good. In that scenario, I can say kivin the ishtri. Why? Because you had a full-fledged window of doing Yibum. Good. You had a window of doing Yibum. Yeah. Now, the chazi laid the beni. You were seen to able to marry your brother's widow before what? You married the sister. Elanasa mace. What happens if you marry, if the dead person marries veloy mace and he doesn't die? V'achach nasa chai, and then you marry the sister. So it's true the Isser of Eishes Ach came in the world, but he's not dead yet because you married what? His wife's sister. And so now you have simultaneously, you have both. And true, the Isser of Eishes Ach was first, but you never had a window where you possibly could have performed it. She wasn't seen at all. Guys, watch. Your brother gets married to a woman. And right now that woman is potentially usher to you because it's your brother's wife, Eishes Ach. Good? Now, you go, before he dies, now you have a woman that's available to you for a classic Yibum. Good? You don't do that. You go ahead and marry what? You marry the sister of the Yevamot. Yeah. So now that's exactly the same case as Mitzayra, guys. What was Mitzayra? You were a full-fledged Mitzayra. You got up in the morning of your 8th day. You were seen to bring the carbon. In other words, right? You could do it. No, you bring the carbon. Everything's good. And then the Issa came in. Your case is not similar to that. It's only similar to that if what? If there was a period of time where you could have done the mitzvah. Just as the Mitzayra could have brought his carbon before he became about Keri, you could have been miyabin your brother's widow before you asid by marrying the sister. What happens if the following scenario? He got married first, the brother. He got married first. And before he died, you married his wife's sister. And then what? And then he dies. So there never was a period what that you could. That would be similar to guys what case? The Mitzayra on the night of the 8th, meaning that the Leil 8th. Can you bring your carbon then? What happens if you see Keri the night before the morning of the 8th? Right? So that would be the exact same case. So in other words, you want to go ahead and compare it to it, it would be only in one scenario. What would that scenario be? If he married a girl, died, and then you married what? The wife's sister. That's the only scenario. So says the Gemara, one more time. Elanasa mace. Elanasa mace. If you marry what? The one who dies marries a certain woman, for loy mace, and he doesn't die, V'yakach nasachai, and then you marry the sister. So right now, you never had a period, but you can do yibum because your brother didn't die yet. Then he dies. Lo yischazi like klal. Why? Because when he died, you had the isra of aches isha there also. Miloi moida ula, would ula not agree? She'im ro keri belel shmini. If you saw Kerry the night before you could bring your carbon, right? You can't go ahead and put your hands you're into the machna shchina. Carbon, because you never had a time you can bring a carbon. So guys, what did we just do? We just slugged up your memetzino of kivin the ishtri. Mechanically, let's go through it again. We want to know why you need the aleha. Why would you think it's mutta? We said, I'll tell you why it's mutta. Once you could go ahead and blow away Eshesach, you can blow away Eshesach and Achasisha. Where do you know that from? You know that from Mitzayra. Mitzayra Balkari, says the Gemara, Mitzayra Balkari will only be one scenario. First is Mitzayra, 8th day Balkari. First he gets married, right? First he gets married, then dies, and then you marry the sister of the wife. That's the only scenario. Ella, but any other scenario wouldn't work. So now the Gemara says, Ella, ki itzrich aleha. Where do you need aleha? You're right. For that scenario where he got married, died, you have Eishesach, and then you married what? The sister. In that scenario, then you need aleha to tell me, since that would be a scenario of Kivan the Ishtri, it will be the exact same thing. What? As Mitzayra on the 8th day. And since in that scenario we say, since it's mutter for the Mitzayra to put his fingers in, even though he's a Balkari, who would then over here, you would say it's mutter to go ahead and be meyabim the wife, even though what? It's your wife's sister. If I need a letter to tell me you can't do it. For that one scenario. Yes, Chaim.
But you can't do that. You can't marry the sister.
It's a Zika, right?
Huh?
There's a Zika there. No?
Yeah, you can't. I thought you couldn't. I mean, from what I remember from
What? Achosu kukaso?
Yeah.
Okay, so hold off. Says the Gemara. The Ibayasema, Asya. Okay, so now we have one teretz and another teretz. The Ibayasema, Asya behekesha midareb yaina. All right, it could be there's another brother there. Asya behekesha dereb yaina, guys. The hekesh reb yaina. In other words, guys, this is a second teretz to what? Why you need a leha. Says the Amar Reb Yaina, v'item Rav Huna, bereid Rav Yeshua, Omakra. It says anyone who does from one of these ta'evos, anyone who does, this is in the end of Vayikra Yudches Chav Tes. After we bring in the whole Parsha of Aroyos, there's like an addendum pasuk that says anyone who does one of these things, v'nichrisu. So why does it say Kol Yaseh? Now in that Parsha of Aroyos, guys, is everything, including Eshesach. So hukish Kol Aroyos Kulon Eshesach. We make a comparison. We're making comparison to everything to Eshesach. Ma Eshesach Sharia, Av Kol Arayos Nami Sharia. Right? Just like Eshesach is Mutter Yibum, I would say everything else is also Mutter. So Kasar Achman Aleha, and therefore the Torah writes Aleha. Okay, guys. You have a pasuk. What is the pasuk? We're doing the exact same thing we did by the Memetzino. What was the Memetzino? Just like Eshesach is Mutter, so to all Arayos is Mutter, using the mechanism of Kivan the Ishtri. Good. We ended up only one scenario. Good. Now, the new thing, guys, new thing. What's the new thing? Here it is. We have a hekesh. In the pasuk, we have a hekesh saying that what? They're all one bundle. So just like your brother's wife is Mutter b'makom yibum, I would say every single erva is Mutter b'makom yibum. Kamashman aleha, that not. Now, what's the obvious question? The same question we asked by Memetzino. Kan iser echad. Over there, it's only brother's wife. Kan shnayim, the erva plus the brother's wife. So there's a difference, guys, between a Memetzino and a hekesh. What's the difference between a Memetzino and a hekesh? A Memetzino, you could ask anything. Ein meshivin ala hekesh. A hekesh is such a powerful lima, there's no questions. So even if you have the question, it falls away. So there's the same question we had by the Memetzino that led us into the sugya of Kivan the Ishtri. Since you matted one, you matted two. You don't have to do that over here. That's what you're gaining. You don't have to do that over here. Why? Because over here, even though it's 2 versus 1, the erva plus Eshesach versus just Eshesach, we don't ask the question. So now we have a second source why we need a leha. Since the hekesh Rabbeinu Yoina would go ahead and put it all together, just like Yibam is mutter by Eshesach, so to Yibam is mutter by every other erva. Maybe not every other erva. It could be just one erva that's not machmas kiruv, as we'll see. only machmas kiruv. Says the Gemara, Hukish kol rois kun leishasach, my eishasach shayav kol rois nami shaya. Because Rechman Allah, Amli v'acham ibdisl ravina michti. Kol arayas ikalak shinu leishasach, v'ikalak shinu lachasisha. Now, we have two parshas, right? We have two parshas. Where do you know that it's mutter for an erva? Yibam, regular case of yibam. Where do you know it's asa? That's the brisa we had on Gimel Amid Beis from Achas Isha. What is Isha l'chaysa l'sikach litzror legal b'chayeha Allah b'chayeha legal ervasa? That was the pasuk. So I'm maybe saying a little wrong, but that's the pasuk. So that pasuk tells me it's asa. We went ahead and we said we compared all arayos to what to Achas Isha that it's asa that you need a leha. I could just as easily compare it to what Yevamot saying it's mutter. Good. So says the Gemara. Fred the Gemara. I can make a hekesh to what to Eishasach, or I can compare it to Achasisha. And Achasisha is also because of Aleha. My chos is the Akshis Achasisha. Why do you opt to compare all the Hekeshim to Achasisha to say it's Aser, Akshin Eishasach, and say it's Mutter? Go ahead and say to your brothers why it's Mutter. Is a partial question. Iba is saying, I'll tell you why. The kula l'chumra, you have a possibility to be makish to a kula. In this case, it would be eishasach. L'chumra would be achasisha. The chumra makshina. We go ahead and we make the hekesh to achasisha. Because why? Because it's a chumra. Iba is saying, hachet trei yisuri, hachet trei yisuri. V'trei mi trei alfinan, aval hachet chadi yisura, v'trei mi chadi alfinan. Now, it doesn't mean that 2 versus 1 you won't learn out. It means given I draw this, if I have 2 to 2 versus 2 to 1, I'm going to do the one that's more comparable. So every erva that's married to a brother has 2 isurim. The erva plus the fact that it's your brother's wife. So you want to know why you go to Parsha Varoyas. You're comparing to Achasisha because you have 2 there, Achasisha and Eishasach. Masha'en Kain, Eishasach is only 1. So therefore, either 2 possibilities. Why are you going l'chumra? Either because l'kul l'chumra you go l'chumra, or because it's more dummy, it's more comparable to go to one that's 2 versus 2 versus 2 versus 1. Okay. So we have right now we have 2 sources for the question that has we've dealt with since the beginning of the Masechta. Very seldom do you have a Gemara that goes on with a question for so long. Really, it's very, very unique. It's very unique. Okay, what was the question? Why do you need a leha for? What's the heta that you need a leha for? So we have a memot sinu and kivin the ishtri, provided it's very finite. It's got to be that he got the one that died got married first. Secondly, he had to go ahead and die before you married the second sister. In that scenario, you needed a leha because there you'd say kivin the ishtri. A second is the hekesh of Rabbi Yoina. Rabbi Yoina's hekesh was since everything is one parsha, it's one big cholent, and we say that in that cholent we have eishasach, and eishasach is what is permitted. So to I'd say all is permitted. Kamashmul and what that Allah that is not permitted. Now we have a third, and this is the difficult one. Listen what Rabbi says, guys. Rabbi says a chiddush nifla. Until now, we've been learning the following. We've been learning you needed to learn 2 dinim. 1, that the erva is asa, and 2, that the tsara is asa. Allah b'chayeha, Allah is going what? B'makam yibum, b'makam alecha, yevama yavay alecha. But in the case of yibum, isha l'chaysa le'sikach, don't take. That's going on the erva itself. Litzrar is going on the tsara. That was the brisa on Gimel Amid Beis. One more time. Take a look back, guys. Let's look back. This is the brisa Gimel Amid Beis, 3b. Seven lines down. Minohani how do you know? And again, you know what we're saying? How do you know? How do you know that b'makam yibum it's aser? How do you know? So the Tanah Rabbanon, Isha el achos el esikach. A woman and a sister do not marry. Litzrar to make them tsaris. Legalos ervasa Allah b'chayeha. Allah matamalim. What do you have to say to the word Allah? If you shenema Yevama Yavay Aleha, since it says Yevama Yavay Aleha, Shaimeya Ani, Afilu ba'achas mikol haroyas amuris b'Torah. I would say, mitzvahs yibum, anyone. Therefore, it says over here by achas isha Aleha, v'nemar lahalon Aleha, ma'alahalon, just like by yibum b'mokah mitzvah. Afkan, by it's speaking about marrying two sisters, it's speaking b'mokah mitzvah. What would happen? Two brothers get married to two sisters. One dies, and now you have the sister falling in front of a brother-in-law. But in the brother-in-law is mutter because it's your brother's wife, but it's also because it's your wife's sister. And the Torah says, "Loi sikach, don't take her, don't take her." The ainli ela. These words are important. The ainli elahi sarasaminayin. Now the ainli elahi means that teaches me only the erva sarasaminayin tamalayma litzvar. So clearly, until now, we've been learning that this kasha of Vayin Aleha is going on the erva. It's going on the erva. Good? In other words, how do you know you can't marry the erva through the mitzvahs of Yibum? That's what we've been learning till now. Says Rava, we never had a havamina that you can marry the tzara. Essay ein asay dochel asay sheyesh bakaras. Out. The whole Gemara is going on the tzara. It's not going on the erva. It's going on the other wife. It's going on Penina. Chana, the erva, nah. Remember that going through the chart. Chana out. The whole Gemara is not going on that. The Gemara is going on the tzara. That you would have thought that the tzara you could marry. Allah tells me that b'makam Allah b'makam mitzvah litzrar. B'makam mitzvah litzrar leisikach. What? The tzara is out because the pasuk says litzrar. Now, how do you darshan it? You darshan the following way: Yevama Yavay Aleha, Ishalachais leisikach, right? Aleha b'chayeha. So so it's speaking Aleha in a pace of yibum, and it says litzrar. That in pace of yibum litzrar the tzara leisikach. That's the way. Rav. The Rav is learning that Aleha is simply to tell you that what. It's all going on the tzara, not on the erva. So if it's not going on the erva, you don't need a limud. We were hacking at China. We're going nuts. How in the world could an erva be muta that you need a leh to say what? It's asa. And the answer is you don't need a leh for that. You don't need a leh. A leh is coming to tell me that the tzara is asa, which is a bigger chiddush because you think the tzara is muta. So because she's not the erva. Kamash Malan, she's asa. That's Rav's mahalach. We just have to fit Rav's mahalach into the brisa we just saw on Gimel Amid Beis. We just have to fit his mahalach. It's a whole different ball of wax, guys. A whole different thing. And believe it or not, it stands true. We're going to question Rava now with some difficult Gemara, and it holds correct. So again, Rav is a whole different mahalach. The Memetzinu with the Ishtri is going on the Erva, and Rabbeinu Yonis Hekish is going on the Erva, and therefore you needed a pasuk of Aleha. Says Rava something totally different. Rava Amar says Rava Erva Gufa Leitzricha Kra. An Erva itself you do not need a pasuk for. You don't need a pasuk. Why? The Ein Asay Dochel Asay Sheyesh Bakaris. Therefore, it's aser. You don't need a law to tell me it's asa. We know it's asa. Ki itzrich kra. What do you need the pasuk for? Lemesa tzara. You need it to asa tzara. You need a law to tell me that tzara is asa. Fred the Gemara of the erva leitzricha kra. The erva doesn't need a pasuk to tell me it's asa. V'hakatani ainli elahi. Guys, the brisa that we just did, I told you it's important. Go back again now. Go back again. It'll make a lot of sense. Rav is saying the erva, guys, is what is mutter, right? Look at the flow. We just go through 3b. We went all the pesukim, right? So says b'makam aleha v'amrachmana. The Torah says leisikach the ainli elahi. That only tells me the erva sarasa minayin. According to Rava, what are you talking about? What do you mean elahi? We know the Erev is Asa, but you see, Rabbi can't argue on a brisa. From the flow of the brisa, who is he speaking about? It must be speaking about the Ereva. So what kind of pshat is Rava? And the brisa continues. The Ainli Elet Sarsa, Sarsa Minayin. Okay, Tamalayim Elitzar. Okay, the Ainli Ela Achasisha. Okay, now we'll have the kasha, guys. Fred the Gemara back by us. Fred the Gemara by us. The Ainli Elahi So how can you tell me it's going on the tzara? Because it says he and then tzara minayin. Mishum tzarsa, right? It says tzara, that he is on the tzara. Fakatani ainli ella hein mishum tzara sayim. So if you look at Rashi, Rashi tells you. Let's show a little Rashi. So it says a little Rashi. Mishum tzarasa, mishum deboy lemisnei tzarasa minayin. Because you have, how do you know, right? Because you have to learn tzara. That's why you say it. You're not saying it for itself. The ainli ella he. Not that you needed to tell me what, that the Erev is Asa. Since you need to tell me that Tsar is Asa, I'm using that Lashon, but not for the Erev itself. Because Eina say, Docha, let's say Sheyesh Makaris, and there's never Havamina the what, that the Erev should be Mutter. Never Havamina. So now it's a whole different Gemara. It's not so schwer, guys. It's you say that Tsara, what did the Tsara do wrong? She's a classic even situation. She was a person married to a brother. The brother's dead. Go ahead and marry the Tsara. Kamash Malon Aleha, you can't marry her. Kamash Malon, you can't marry her. Toshma. Rebbe, now we go through Rebbe fast, guys, because we're going to see Rebbe on the Amid base. I'm just going through Rebbe now for the we're not going to analyze Rebbe. We're just going to ask a kasha from Rebbe. And so I'm going to go through it fast, and the Amid base, we're going to analyze it for itself. Toshma, again, we're going to ask a question of Rava. Rava says it's only going on the Tsar, it's not going on the Erva. Toshma, Rebbe Yomer, it could have said V'lakach, and it says V'lakcha. It could have said V'lakach, it says V'lakcha. It could have said V'yibim, and it says V'yibma. It could have said V'yibim, and it says V'yibma. Less it's sarais v'arayos. It can't. What you have two psukim, one lacha, one yavma. What do they come to do? One to asa the tzara, and here's the kasha, and one to asa the erva. But according to Rava, you don't need a pasuk to asa the erva. That's the kasha and Rava from Rebbe's a Tana. Rava can't argue with a Tana. Again, Rebbe brings in a pasuk. That pasuk accomplishes two things: one for the tzara, one for the erva. But 1 second, Rava, you just told me you don't need a pasuk for the erva. So why is Rebbe bringing a pasuk for the erva? I will analyze it in a second when you get them in base. But you had a kasha. Ema lesa tzara shalaroyes. Don't say it's one, it's two, it's one. It means this pasuk is coming to asa the tzara of an erva. Of tzara, that's only one, right? Right? He just bought two psukim for lakach v'yibim. He bought two. How can you just say it's one? My love chad le'erva v'chad le'tzara kashan rava. Loi idi v'idi le'tzara chad le'mesa tzara b'makam mitzvah v'chad le'mishri tzara shaloi b'makam mitzvah. Okay, now your brother marries a girl. She happens to be your daughter from a rape, right? Pitam and Sasa. Good. She falls to you. There's an other Sarah. That's number one of the 15. That was number one of the 15. Two brothers, Reuven and Shimon. Shimon is married to Reuven's daughter. That was a result of he forced himself on a woman, and he has another wife. Shimon dies. These two are falling in front of what of. So the tzara you can't do even to because it's makkah mitzvah, less a tzara b'makkah mitzvah. Good, very good. Let's say Reuven's daughter, Manu Sasa, goes and marries, not Shimon, marries a young man. She could marries a young man. What's the young man's relationship with Reuven? Son-in-law. It's the son-in-law, right? That son-in-law happens to have another wife. It's the same tzara to your daughter as it was when it was Shimon, right? Shimon, your brother, was married. He had your daughter had a tzara. Now, Reuven's son Harry married. I'm assuming son. Reuven's daughter marries a guy named Harry, and Harry happens to have a wife. That's tzara's bita, right? What happens if Harry dies? Reuven can marry the tzara. Why? It's shaloi b'makkah mitzvah. There's no mitzvah of yibum. The whole isser of tsaras b'tay is only b'makkah yibum, only b'makkah mitzvah. In a place where there is no mitzvah, over here, married to a stranger. Harry was a stranger. It wasn't a blood relative. It wasn't his paternal brother like yibum. It was a stranger. It was tsaras b'tay because Harry was married to the same daughter that Shimon was married to. Doesn't make a difference. So that's what the pasuk comes to do. Both parts of the psukim are speaking about tsaras b'tay, but it's not speaking about the erev itself. Says the Gemara inside one more time. Fred the Gemara kasha, but trei kakanasav le you be two psukim. So how can you speak? It says it's speaking about the tzara of an erva. It's mashma. It's two separate things, tzara and erva. My love chad le'eva v'chad le'tzara and kashan rava, who says there never was a havamina to go ahead and that erva should be aser mutter. Loi idi le'tzara. They're both le'tzara. Chad le'meisar tzara b'makam mitzvah. V'chad le'mishrei tzara shlei b'makam mitzvah. My timer, it says it could have said v'yibeim, and it says v'yibma. What does that mean? B'makam yibam hu da'asira. That's where you say le'sikach. B'makam yibam. That's where it says you can't marry. Sarah shaloi b'makam yibam shayit Sarah shaloi b'makam yibam. It will be permitted. Good. So that's Rava. That's Rava's shita, guys. Omar Rav Ashi. This is the classic that yeshiva. You would have said, Rabbi, I wish you would have told me this. You would have told me this. It would save me so much time. I'm going to answer the question. Perfect. Omar Rav Ashi. Mastisa nami deka. Our Mishnah is also meduyik. Our Mishnah also is clear. Diktani, chamesh esrei nashim, poitrois tzara sehem. 15 women let their tzaras off the hook. The ilu peturois u poitrois like a tani. It doesn't say they are potter and the ervas and the tzaras potter. Why doesn't it say they are potter? Because you don't need to tell me that. That's clear. The Mishnah also is meduyik that it wasn't going on the erva, guys. All it was going on was the impact on the tzara, right? 15 women, their relationship to another woman lets that other woman off the hook. But we weren't discussing the woman, the erva itself. That's Rava's din. Says Rashi, it's meduyik, the lashon of the Mishnah, like Rava. So the whole Gemara was a moot point. You went on a wild goose chase according to this, right? According to this, why do you need a law to tell me it's mutter? Yeah, no, you don't need a law for that. You know what you need a law for, guys? Here's what you need a law. Here's the way Rabbi is dashing a law. B'makam aleha, then leisikach litzor, in the place of aleha, meaning yavama yavai aleha, in that place where aleha takes place, that's makam mitzvah. There litzor leisikach, you can't marry the erva. That's it. And that holds. So, guys, forever hold your peace. Then we're going to analyze, but three truths into the question. What's that question? If Rabbi Stur makes you up in the middle of the night, or your little boy is crying in the middle of the night, and you go and say, what's wrong? And he says, I was bothered by this kasha. Why do you need the pasuk of Allah to tell me that what? That an erva is asa. Why were you thinking erva is mutta? Now, it's not essay dochel essay, right? Because why? Ain't essay dochel sheish bakaris. Well, little boy, it could be a memetzino, according to Rava. It could be a memetzino in a scenario of Kivin Ishtri, where the Issa of Eishas Ach took place totally beforehand, and then the Issa of Achasisha took place, similar to what Mitzayra and Kerry. Or it could be the Hekesh Rabbi Yoina, of Rabbi Yoina, the Hekesh of Rabbi Yoina, that what? It's all manchalin, so just like this is mutta, that's mutta. You need to allow to tell me it's asa. Or it's Rava, you're right. You needed a laugh for Yibum, for Erefa. Then there was a havamina that Erefa should be mutta. The whole day was for Tzara. Good, simple, yeah, easy. Yeah, why is Yevamot so hard? It's so hard to stop. That's good, no problem. Mordechai, you could eat also. Anyway, so says the Gemara Vayta. Now a little Shema Mina, guys. Shema Mina, you have a good raya to Rava. It's all going on the tzara. Paitras tzara. Fred the Gemara. Umayshna erva the loy tzricha kra the ein asay dochalos asay sheyesh bakaris. Tzara nami loy tiboy kra. Mishum the ein asay dochalos asay sheyesh bakaris. Rashi, guys, says Rashi. Tzara nami loy tiboy aleha kra. You shouldn't need aleha the drasha. The ein asay dochalos asay sheyesh bakaris. The chsiv litzrar. The mashma. Loy oisa isha, v'loy tzarasa, uksiv karis b'soif haroyas. Guys, what does it say in the pasuk? The isha alachaisa leitzichach leisikach litzrar. It's speaking about two women, isha alachaisa and litzrar. Yeah. At the end of the parsha, it says the din of karis. So you're telling me, Rava, what are you telling me? You do not need a pasuk for the erva. Why? Because ein asay dogalos l'shish b'karis. That same svara you could use by the tzara. The tzara says litzar, it says leisikach, there's karis by the end. So you have a pasuk telling me that the same thing. That what? So why do you need a pasuk of Allah litzar l'chayra? As I afraid the Gemara. Amalei Ravacha Bar Bibi Mar Ravina Hachi Kamar Shmei de Rava. Sora Nami Lo Yitzrach Kra. So in other words, what I told you was incorrect. In other words, there's no Havamina that Erva, and there's no Havamina that Sora. Let's close the Gemara, right? You got me? So why do you need Allah? So what is Allah doing, guys? What's Allah doing? Ki Yitzrach Kra. When do you need Allah? Amid base, thankfully. Ki Yitzrach Kra. When do you need a pasuk? Lemishri Sara Shaloi b'makay mitzvah. It's to mata at Sara Shaloi b'makay mitzvah. That Harry, in the case of the Tsara that's married to Harry's daughter, Reuven's daughter, Meanusa, married to Harry, a total femda. Not only what is Bita is Asa, the Bita is Asa, however, the daughter, the Tsara is permitted. The Tsara of the daughter is permitted. So Allah is not coming to Aser, Allah is coming to Mater. Allah is coming to Mater. My timer, Amakra Allah. B'makam Allah hu dasiri. Shalai b'makam la sharia. Okay, let me just tell you what I just said. Guys, look at me. It's really repetitious. Really, it is. You go back to that pasuk in Daf Gimel, right? Good. Now, until now, we've been learning that it was us. It was muta that I needed Allah to tell me it's asa. No. Erev is asa, leisikach. Litzra tsar is asa, leisikach. When is that? That's dafka aleha, in a place where there's a mitzvah of yibum. What does aleha do? It connects you to the pasuk in Kiseitze. Yevamot yavay aleha. When was this then stated that you can't marry the erva and you can't marry the tsara? When was that stated? Only b'makam aleha. Then litzrar. However, shaloi b'makam aleha, where your daughter is married to Harry and there's another person, that's not Yevama Yavay Aleha. In that scenario, Allah tells me what? You can marry. So in other words, so now Allah until now is coming to be an Isser. Allah now is coming to be a Heter. It's coming to matter at Sarah when it's not b'makam Aleha, when it's not b'makam Yibam. What? Because it's an Isser of essay, Dochalos Seshesh Bakaris. That's sorry, the pasuk says litzra. But Mocha mitzvah asa. Why would I think it's muta? In other words, I would say it's asa. I'd say the following: since at the time, no, I'll tell you the same thing. Since she was an Sarah to an erva, mali b'mocha mitzvah, mali shlem b'mocha mitzvah. That would be the svara. Now we know that's not a good svara because the issa of guys, this is alumnus, guys. The issa of tsara is eshesach. In other words, since b'mokim yibam when you fell, you could not be mekayim the mitzvah of Yevav Yav Alecha. What falls into place? The classic issue of eshesach, where it's Harry, where they're not. But again, but you see, you need a limit for it. Okay, so that's what we're holding right now. We're holding that according to Rava, it's coming to matter. Guys, you good? So that's the end of the sugya. I mean, that's basically, a few more kashas, but basically we got it. Three lines to the top. Listen to this svara. Let's say the erva itself. Now, this means achasisha, guys. That doesn't mean bita. Your daughter you can have, in other words, if it's we saw today Shimon was the hafla. What was hafla, right? The hafla was, yeah. The hafla we saw, I think it's hafla. I think it's not flow. We saw, obviously, it can't be speaking about all arroyas, guys. It can't be speaking about all arroyas. It's speaking about one that comes as a result of ishus. So, for example, your daughter's erva has nothing to do with the fact that you got married. It's your blood relative. Your granddaughter is a blood relative, whether it's the daughter of your son or the daughter of your daughter. It's a blood relative. How did your wife's sister become asa to you? Through marriage, ishus. So therefore, I would think that it's only going on that relation that was created. It wasn't a blood relations, guys. It was created. Welcome to Yevamot, guys. It was created. So now, Ema erva gufa. Let's say the erva itself, meaning the achas isha. Be medayik in my words. The achas isha, not any other erva. Or achas isha gufa shaloi b'makom mitzvah tishteri. That the shaloi b'makom mitzvah, you should be able to marry the erva itself. In other words, your wife's sister, if it's not b'makom, let's say your wife's sister married Harry, a stranger. They married brothers, married stranger, and there's a tzara, and Harry dies. You should be able to marry your wife's sister. Let's say that. So Rabbi says to them, that you can't. But makom mitzvah asira shalai b'makom sharia. In the place of a mitzvah yibum, you can't marry your wife's sister. Shalai b'makom mitzvah, you should be able to marry your wife's sister. So Rami Bar Chama said back to Rabbi, Sarah tachiach, a Sarah will disprove you. The b'makom mitzvah asiri, that Sarah b'makom yibum is asa, u'shalai b'makom mitzvah shari, right? The Penina, the wife of b'makom mitzvah, where Chana was married to Shimon, it's asa. Married to Harry is mutter. So what do you see? That there's a difference between what? B'makom mitzvah, b'makom mitzvah. So Amalei, so Rabbi says to Rami Bar Chama, Alecha, regarding you, Amakra, the pasuk says, B'chayeha. Isha, it says, Aleha b'chayeha, guys. Kol she b'chayeha, right? So anything b'chayeha. In other words, as long as she's alive, you can't marry your wife's sister. So even though she was married to Harry and Harry died, you still can't marry her. Why? Because your wife and your sister, and they're both still alive in this world. They're both still alive. Fred Gemara. I need that Bechayah to tell me that what that you're able to marry her after she dies. Says the Gemara, no, he may be Isha Elachaysa Nafka. That I can learn out from Isha Elachaysa. Mashma that what? Isha Elachaysa, when they're married, they're both at the same time. Then you can marry. But if Mashma, one's not in this world, you can marry. So you can marry them at the same time. What about if one gets divorced? What happens if they get divorced? So Tamalayim b'chayaha dafka alive. Kol sheb'chayaha the afghan niskar shaloi. So therefore, you have a valid question. Rami Bar Chama has a valid question on Rava, right? A valid question on Rava, right? How would you know that that the erva is asar? El Amar Avhuna Bar Tachtif Mishmei the Rava Trei Kroy because there's two psukim. Ksiv Isha la Chaysel Sikach. It says in Isha. It's really the same pasuk, but we're going to dash in two ways. Ksiv Isha la Chaysel Sikach. One litzrar. Uksiv legalis ervasa. Now, Isha elachaysa. Isha, a woman, elachaysa to her sister. Her sister's mashma is two people, her and her sister, right? Uksiv legalis ervasa. Her erva mashma only one. The chada mashma haketzad the makkah mitzvah. I would say in the place of mitzvah shtei masuros. They're both asa. The makkah mitzvah they're both asa. Shalei b'makkah mitzvah is not makkah mitzvah. He asura, she's asa. It's surasa muteres, and the tzara is muta. Let's switch it around. The makkah mitzvah he asura. The erv is asa b'makkah mitzvah. It's surasa muteres. Ushlei b'makkah mitzvah then shtei masuros. Why do you say b'makkah mitzvah they're both asa? I could just as easily say b'makkah mitzvah the tzara is muta, and shlei b'makkah mitzvah they're both asa. Says then you have to say aleha to make the comparison to Yevamot. Again, by saying aleha, you make the comparison to Yevamot. Tell me that this whole din is b'makkah what? B'makkah mitzvah. Right, after makkah mitzvah. How do you know Allah is coming to Asa? Maybe it comes to Mata. Here's what the Torah is telling us: Isha elachaysa loisikach litzrar. An isha to her sister you shouldn't take, or the loihi, not her, loitzarasa, and shlei b'makom aleha. That's shlei b'makom aleha. Al b'makom aleha shtei mutaros. In other words, the exact opposite. But why do you opt to say that what b'makom mitzvah they're both asa? Why don't you say b'makom mitzvah they're both mutar and shlei b'makom mitzvah they're asa? And Cain legalis erva the chad hechim mishkachasla. Where did you ever find that galis asa the one? So even b'makom mitzvah shtei mutaros, usually b'makom mitzvah shtei masuros. Okay, let's just do the Rabbi now. Okay, basically, guys, in summary, you have your three terutzim. In summary, you have your three terutzim. You have the teretz of Kivan Ishtri. You have the teretz of the Hekshter of Rabbi Yoina, and you have Rava. You have Rava's questions here back and forth, a lot of difficult, intense Gemara, and we will go on. Bez Hashem. Okay, Rabbi said earlier, you're going to dash in Balakach, Valakcha, V'yibem, V'yivma. Okay, now, Kufa, Rabbi Omer, Valakach, it could have said Valakach, it says Valakcha, V'yibem, V'yibma. That says Le'eset Tsaris V'aroyas. Now, Midei Tsaris Ksiva, Hacha. How does Rebbe get from Balakach, Valakcha, V'yibem, V'yivma? How do you get the word Sarah? How do you get a tzara there? Void. Soris mi litzra nafka. Soris you learn from litzra. You don't learn from velaka. Shimon, that's what I said this morning. You learn from the word litzra. You don't learn from the velaka v'yibem. So two things. One, how do you get from the words velaka v'yibem tzara and sveitens? We know that the word tzara comes from litzra, and you can see the word tzara. Litzra is in there. It says Gemara litzra mafle Rebbe litzra Shimon. Litzra Rebbe litzra Shimon's name. We're going to meet Reb Shimon and Chavches. It's a heavy duty Yevamot term. 3 brothers married to women, and they fall in front of the third brother. I'm going to wait on this because it's late and it's late. So, but just he needs it for Reb Shimon. Whatever Reb Shimon says, he needs it for that. We're going to get. Don't worry, I'll get you back. So now Tzara. Where does it say Tzara? Heichiksiv Tzara. Where does Tzara? That the first question remains. So the Mahachika Im Kain. If so, Lemakra. If it's just coming to Asa the Erva, not the Tzara, Lemakra v'lokach. My v'lokcha take her. No, v'lokach means and take. V'lokcha take her. Kol heicha dika trei lekuchen. There's what 2 people married. That's how I know it's speaking about a Tzara. There's 2. The boy nasiv high, the boy nasiv high. If I can marry this one or marry that one, then Sharia. When in other words, there's no erva. It's a regular case of Eshesach. You can marry v'iloi shavayu asiri. If I can't marry one because she's an erva, whatever the erva is, I can't marry the other. The yibma. When is this stated? B'makom yibam hu dasiri tzara. Shalai b'makom yibam shayit tzara. So that's where Rabbi gets what his limit for. So that's what for Rabbanon. The Rabbanon they learn from Aleha. In other words, the Rabbanon learned the din of Allah from Litzra, right? So what does Rabbi do? We know Rabbi learned V'laka V'lacha. What is for Rabbanon learn from Litzra? What do they do with Rabbi's limudim? Hi V'lacha my Ovid. What does he use it for? Let's say, guys. Let's say you marry Yevamot. You miyabim her, and now you want to divorce her. Do you have to give a chalitza? No. It's a limud. It says what? That's a limud. So in other words, you can go ahead and you can take it back. In other words, you would say the following: since it was an erva and the Torah matan an erva, once you did it, you did the kind of mitzvah. Great. Once you let it go, I would say maybe Eishesach falls back. It's very interesting svara. You needed a pasuk to tell me no. You need a pasuk to tell me once you do yibum, she's a full-fledged regular wife. That what you can be divorce her normally and take her back, provided she didn't marry to another man. Provided she didn't marry another man, every time you could take her back. The yibma al karcha against her will. Provided you can be miyabim against the will. Okay, provided she's not what and mukashrin. Provided she's not mukashrin. For Rabbi Yosef B'chanina Mel Isha Nafka. Rabbi, what is Rabbi who learns V'laka V'lacha? What is Rabbi Yosef B'chanina's din from? That again it says V'laka Mel Isha Nafka. It says in the Varim Chafei Beis. It says in the Parsha of Yevamot, it says the word Isha. Nafka. Al Karcha. What do you know? Al Karcha mi Yevamot Yavay Aleha Nafka. Yevamot Yavay Aleha. We'll stop over here.